Yo, what up, everybody? It's Verbal D, and we're going to be jumping into my afterthoughts of chapter 14, Genesis. That was a very difficult chapter to read. Very complicated and complex words. A lot of names I couldn't pronounce. Let's see if we can break down what we can find out what was going on with the wars that were happening in chapter 14. So, verse 1. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Birsha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. So those are the 9 kings that are about to war. So verse 3 says, all these were joined together in the valley of Siddim, which is the salt sea. They were coming to battle together. 4. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. So which ones rebelled? The first 4 in verse 1 were of Chedorlaomer, and then in verse 2, these are the kings that rebelled against the alliance, right? Verse 5, and in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaims and Ashtaroth, Karnaim, and the Zuzims and Ham, and the Emims in Shaveh, Kiriathim. That's a hard one. Kiriathaim. Verse 6, and the Horites in their Mount Seir unto El Paran, which is by the wilderness. So they're already starting to slaughter competition over there, right? Verse number 7, and they returned and came to Enmishpet, which is Kadesh, Enmishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites. That's an easy one to say. And also the Amorites that dwelt in Hazazon Tamar. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the same is Zoar, and they joined battle with them in the valley of Siddim. So while Chedorlaomer and his kings are destroying all these groups of people, then followed the rebellious kings, and they all met in the valley of Siddim, right? Verse 9, with Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and with Tidal, king of nations, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings with 5. Who were the 5? The 5 rebellious kings, right? Verse 10, and the valley of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there, and they that remained fled to the mountain. And we already know that God says that Sodom and Gomorrah, the men there are very wicked and they're very sinful, right? So it's only suits them that they fled from battle, and they ended up falling into the slime pits in the valley of Siddim while they're all battling, right? And they that remained fled to the mountain. Verse 11, and they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their victuals and went their way. Now this is where it gets interesting. So Chedorlaomer and his 4 kings, the 4 kings total, the other 3 kings, they were picking up all the goods, right? And they're picking up all the victuals. And then victuals basically means food, right? Sustenance. 12, this is what I was talking about in chapter 13. And they took Lot, because Lot lived and he pitched his tent near Sodom, right? And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, his nephew, Abram's nephew, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. Verse 13, and there came one that had escaped, and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, and brother of Aner, and these were confederate with Abram. So Abram has a lot of people that are around him to help him, and he has an escapee tell him what's going on, that his nephew just got kidnapped and taken as a prisoner with Chedorlaomer and his 3 kings after the battle. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, and the reason why he says brother, it's kind of like, I don't know you, but if you are a believer in Jesus Christ, you would be considered my brother or sister in Christ, right? So the same applies. Even though that is his nephew, then he also considers them that is also his brother, right? That's like when they were arguing with the herdsmen, Lot's herdmen, and Abram's herdsmen. He says, we shouldn't be fighting. We're brethren. We're brothers. So that's all that means. It's not to confuse you that Lot is really his brother. It's really his brother's son, as clarified in verse 12. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, right? So verse 14, and when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, because he's very wealthy. He has trained servants to fight, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. So he's going on a rescue mission. And he divided himself against them. And I made a little note here. It says first battle tactic, right? So they're already planning how they're going to attack and rescue Lot. And he divided himself against them, he and his servants, by night, and smote them. So they divided, they planned it out, they attacked from different angles. And smoting is the past tense verb of smite, which means to destroy, right? So, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. So he's smiting them and he's pursuing them, which means they're on the run from his 318 trained servants who seem to be very dangerous, especially that they have God on their side to be victorious. Verse 16, and he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer. So they killed the king, Chedorlaomer, and of the kings that were with him at the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's dale. So the king of Sodom, obviously knowing that Lot was kidnapped during this time, and that Lot lived nearby the Sodomites, so maybe they had a connection with them, and he was going to confront Abram, right? And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. So they're already starting to celebrate their victory, right? And he blessed him and said, blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand. And he gave him tithes of all. Right? So Melchizedek, king of Salem, is once again being used as a vessel from God, because he is also a priest of the Most High God. He's bringing forth bread and wine, and he's also giving tithes, blessings of money and other things to Abram for his victory. Verse 21, and the king of Sodom said unto Abram, so he interjects, give me the persons and take the goods to thyself, right? So give me the people of my kingdom, please, and take all the materialistic items. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, and this shows Abram's character, right? I have lifted up mine hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread, even to a shoe latchet, not even a shoestring, right? And that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich. Save only that which the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men which went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their portion. So this is very cool, because it shows that out of all this wickedness, especially with the Sodomites, and especially with the kings fighting over territory, pride, ego, Abram shows that he is a great representative of humankind, of the children of God. He says, I don't need any of the things that we have recovered from you. You can take your people, you can take your goods, your victuals, your material items. I don't need you to say that you made me rich, because I was rich already. I came with 318 trained servants to rescue Lot, my nephew, who is also his brother in God, the children of God. So Abram is reliant and faithful on God. He knows that God will provide all his needs. He doesn't need to steal, or he doesn't even need to pillage or, take something from a man who's already defeated. Clearly he's defeated. They were running away with Gomorrah and Sodom's kings and the people. They were falling into the slime pits, the valley of Siddim. So this is a very honorable thing what Abram does. And he just says, the people that went with me, he lists their names. He says, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their portion. But for me, I don't need what I have everything that I need. I have everything. God has provided everything. All this stuff is meaningless. I'm just glad to have my nephew back. So very, very cool story. A great account of a man with morals and values. I hope you guys enjoyed this My Afterthoughts video. I will see you in the next one, chapter 15, when I get around to it. Stay in the Bible, read the word, and strengthen your mind, renew it, and God bless.